All right, so here's the deal. WandaVision. Let's talk about it. So this is not going to be your typical review. I will give kind of my overall synopsis of what I thought the show was like and what I overall thought about that show and the things I did and didn't like. But one thing I'm going to do right now is something that I haven't done before. I have a tendency to write my own endings when I don't like them because I guess I'm a filmmaker and writer, so that's just my mentality. However, I don't want you guys to think that this is going to be like a regular thing because I'm not Nando v Movies. I don't do my own rewrites of movies as as a video series. It's not going to happen, but I will be doing that right now for WandaVision just because I had this idea in my head for a while and I just feel like I need it to be out there. I thought it was a really cool idea, so I wanted to talk to you guys about it and see if you guys like it. Maybe it's a terrible idea. I don't know. There are a couple rewrites that I've seen, then it comes off very fan fiction-y. That might be the case for my rewrite that I'm about to do for the ending of WandaVision right now. Let me know if you think it sucks in the comments. But right now, I'm going to talk about how I would personally fix the ending of WandaVision. And not necessarily fix the ending of WandaVision, because I thought WandaVision ended really great, but just fix one thing that I was really let down by. What did I feel about WandaVision as a show? As a show, I loved WandaVision. I thought it was really good. I thought it was one of the deepest character studies that we've had in the MCU so far. It's a really cool and interesting portrayal about sadness, grief, and trauma and loneliness, and to see Wanda's character develop and grow. Like I said, it's one of the deepest character studies that we've had in the MCU. This is a very character-driven show. There are a couple things, though, that I felt like could have been improved upon, and I am not talking about the Mephisto gate. I am not one of those guys who was like pinpointing every little Easter egg and was like, oh my gosh, what is it? They're setting up Mephisto. They're setting up Reed Richards is going to appear. No, the show never set anything up. When Monica Rambeau was said, I know an aerospace engineer who can help me with this, they didn't set up Reed Richards. You guys set up Reed Richards. That was 100% you guys projecting what you wanted to see onto it. And same thing with Mephisto, Nightmare, Doctor Strange. That stuff was never set up by the show. That was 100% the fans projecting their own sensibility and their own headcanon onto the show. So that is not fair to criticize the show for that reason. However, one thing they did set up that was a complete letdown was Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver, played by Evan Peters. That was something that the show did set up, and it had a terrible payoff. So for those of you who just need a refresher, Evan Peters, who plays Quicksilver in the X-Men series of movies, came over to the Marvel Universe. Considering that we've had J. Jonah Jameson appear, playing the same character in a different universe, we kind of thought that there was a whole multiversal aspect going on. WandaVision was going to lead into Doctor Strange 2, which was called the Multiverse of Madness. It was fair to assume that this was a different Quicksilver from a different universe, or the X-Men universe that they were setting up. Turns out that's not the case. Turns out it was a giant red herring where he was a character called Ralph Bohner. So all that set up for a boner joke. I was not happy. As a matter of fact, when I saw the finale, I couldn't even enjoy it because that one reveal really ruined it for me. That was an awful reveal. I actually had to rewatch the finale just to enjoy it because the first time I watched it, I just couldn't focus on how good it was because of that reveal. And I guess I'm the only one because I did a poll on Stardust and I said, did you like the Quicksilver reveal? And over 60% of people said they did. So I don't understand it. Maybe I'm the only one here. I had a friend who said it was one of the best reveals in MCU history. Imagine how he felt when it was revealed that Evan Peters was just playing this dude named Bohner. That was a huge letdown that the show set up. And I understand kind of maybe what they were trying to do. They were kind of trying to do this meta thing where because Wanda is going through all this trauma, she looks at Pietro and she sees her brother, even though it's not her brother. So they cast Evan Peters to almost put us in Wanda's mindset almost, to where it's like we're in her mind almost just as confused as her, where it's like, wait, that is Quicksilver, but it's not Quicksilver. Like it is her brother technically, but it's not her brother. So like we were confused just as Wanda, and so we were placed in her headspace. In a way, it's a creative tactic of the writers to do that. And I know the creator said something about how people going through trauma misremember faces, and I get that, but at the same time, when you set something up like that, when you have the actor who plays Quicksilver in the X-Men universe come over to the Marvel universe playing the same character, it's safe to assume that people are going to come up with crazy ideas, especially when this leads into the multiverse of madness. I was one of those people who was like, the MCU has changed forever. And then I saw a lot of people making fun of those people who said that on Twitter and stuff. And I was like, the show set it up, though. That was a giant troll on Marvel's part. It's like that was literally the Mandarin all over again, guys. But what would I do to change what I feel like a lot of people thought was a letdown with Ralph Bohner? First off, I just want to point out that nothing in the actual episode or the entire series is going to be changed because I think it's great as is. Most of my flaws with WandaVision, it comes from this one letdown of a reveal with Pietro. Here's where the first change is going to happen in my rewrite of the script. So, in the final episode, it seemed like they kind of wanted to split up Wanda and Vision and kind of give them their own adversaries. Vision was fighting White Vision, and Wanda was fighting Agatha Harkness. So they each kind of had their own villain. However, that kind of left Monica alone in a room with Ralph Bohner, not really doing anything, in this kind of awkward scene. I didn't really make much sense. It's like she was just waiting there. Vision has someone to fight. Wanda has someone to fight. Let's give Monica someone to fight. I think Monica should have gotten her own action set piece with Quicksilver. So Evan Peters as Quicksilver, he's fighting Monica. So it's like they have their own thing because he's being controlled by the necklace still. So what can happen is that they can fight each other in the house, around the house. Maybe there could be like a cool sequence where they literally destroy the house. I know that might not be in the budget for the show, but I think that would have been a really cool visual. Point is, I think it would have been cooler if she was fighting Quicksilver and they had their own sort of back and forth. Vision's fighting White Vision, Wanda's fighting Agatha, and Monica is fighting Quicksilver. And Quicksilver is still going to have that kind of after image trail where it looks more so like Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver, more so than the Fox X-Men Quicksilver. Because even though the Fox X-Men Quicksilver looks good and better, there's a reason I'm keeping the sort of after image trails and why his speed looks different. There's a reason, and I'm going to get to it. Monica, Quicksilver, they're fighting. Bam, Monica gets the upper hand, right? It's this cool, crazy sequence. You can even have something sort of like the slow-mo sequences in the X-Men movies, where kind of Quicksilver has his own moment. I mean, I don't know if they would have the budget for that for a television show, even a Marvel television show, but, you know, something like a cool fight between them would have been pretty sick. Monica gets the upper hand. Maybe freaking Quicksilver's like spinning all around her, like running all around her, and she uses her power to sort of hone in on like his thermal, like she uses like her thermal vision to like hone in on him, and then she sort of blasts him or whatever. She gets the upper hand. She notices that the necklace is glowing in a different photon ray, the same way she did in the original finale, and she rips the necklace off of him, okay? Because the necklace was from Agatha, who was controlling him. Freaking Pietro freaking wakes up. He's like, what the hell? What's going on? He starts freaking out and he runs away. He just runs. If you want, this is not mandatory, but you can sort of have it to where he had that afterburn image, kind of like the MCU Quicksilver, and then when the necklace is ripped off of him, he sort of like vibrates, and then like his speed is almost upgraded. So it was almost like not only was Agatha controlling him with the necklace, but she also dampened his speed just because he's so powerful. So maybe he like sort of vibrates super fast, and then it turns into the X-Men sort of Quicksilver where it's more... You know what I'm saying? That's not necessary. It kind of goes against like my sort of plans, but it can happen if you want. So he just runs away. Maybe you can show him like vibrating through the hex or something, but you don't need that. You don't need that. That's only because there's like a sort of a plot hole toward the end where it's like, how did he get out of the hex? Because the hex was still going on when Agatha was fighting Wanda, and obviously the fight between Monica and Quicksilver would end before the fight between Wanda and Agatha, obviously. So you don't need to show him exit the hex because I feel like that's just something that doesn't need to be explained. But if you want, you can show him like vibrating through the hex or something. I don't know. But that's not necessary. I would personally just have him run away at super speed. Like she rips the necklace off him. He's all confused. He's like, what the hell? And then he just runs away. And then the rest of the series ends the way it ends, with that beautifully emotional moment between Wanda and Vision. I mean, that moment was heartwarming and heartbreaking at the same time. But here's where the big stuff comes in. After credits, in the original ending, Wanda is in a cabin, right? We see her astral projecting with the Darkhold, and we hear the cries of her children. And I'm not going to get rid of that because I like that. Here's where the big changes come in. And it's just with this one after credit scene. It's super fan servicey. It's super crazy, but I feel like it might work. Here is what I would do. We see Wanda in the cabin, same way. She's sitting on the porch with the coffee, whatever. She goes in, and then we see her astral projection form with the Darkhold, like, yo, what's up? You hear the kids screaming and everything, but it doesn't just end there. So what happens is this. The camera pulls out of the cabin, right? We're in this aerial shot. It pulls out of the cabin, and we see the camera keep zooming back until we see the outline of someone's shoulder, and then it's revealed. Boom. Who is it? It's Quicksilver, played by Evan Peters, right? He's wearing a cool upgraded blue, gray, and green version, mostly blue and gray though, of his Quicksilver outfit from the comics. Because during Halloween, why would he spray paint this random Quicksilver outfit when that's not already his mutant uniform? Yes, he is a mutant, by the way. So he's wearing that outfit. He's standing on an adjacent hill across from the cabin overlooking Scarlet Witch without her knowing about it, obviously. And I want to point out that this shot mimics the same shot where he was introduced, where the camera pulls over his shoulder and reveals the back of his head. I feel like that would be a very cool parallel from his first appearance of when he appeared in the show versus this kind of sequence where he's overlooking and kind of, spying on Wanda at this moment. I think that would be a really cool parallel. The camera's on him, and then he runs back, right? And all of a sudden, boom, he stops in front of somebody. We don't see who yet, but he stops in front of someone, and the dirt kicks up from his speed and all that. And he's talking to someone. He's like, she's in the cabin. She's alone. What should we do? And then the camera turns around to reveal Magneto, played by Michael Fassbender, in his comic accurate frickin' Magneto suit next to Polaris. And if you don't know, Polaris is Magneto's other daughter who has the same powers as him. Freaking Quicksilver runs to them. He's like, she's alone. What should we do? Freaking Magneto, played by Michael Fassbender, appears. He's like, we should take her. We should just jump in there. We don't have any more time to waste, and take her, and we can explain it later. And then a voice appears from behind them, and he's like, we're not doing any of that. And then maybe he does a little chess allegory to explain why you need patience. Who's talking, though? Who is talking right now? So the voice sounds familiar to us, right? The camera cuts to a shot of the grass, and then we see a wheel enter the frame. The camera then booms up to reveal that the shape of the frame of the wheelchair is in an X symbol. And then the camera keeps booming up to reveal who's talking. And it finally reveals frickin' Ian McKellen as old Magneto rolling up in Professor X's wheelchair, dude. I mean, imagine that reveal, dude, where it's like you just see the freaking frame, and then it's like you see the X on the wheelchair. It doesn't have to be the one from the Fox X-Men universe. I'd actually prefer it to be different, but enough to know that it is Professor X's wheelchair. Or, here's another idea, it's his floating wheelchair from the animated television show and certain versions of the comics, and maybe frickin' Magneto is using his magnetic powers to literally levitate the chair with Magneto in it. I just think it would be this dope parallel to where it's almost like Magneto has become Professor X. And I know what you're thinking, but there's young Magneto too. There's old and young Magneto. Like, people's brains would be going insane. Like, we got Quicksilver, we got Polaris, young Magneto, and old Magneto. So they all turn to old Magneto, who is clearly the leader in this Brotherhood-esque situation right now. Polaris is like, what is so special about this girl? Wanda died. Our Wanda died. He turns to Polaris and he says, she is the key to our survival. That's what old Magneto says. Cuts to black. People are like, what the fuck? Like, people would have been losing their fucking minds, dude. Now, that's where it would end. So I'm going to go beyond that and explain what all of that meant, which would be explained in further properties, in other television shows, and other movies. All right, so also just keep in mind that these ideas are not 100% fleshed out. Some of them I'm sort of just making up as I go. Where the idea sort of really ends is that reveal of Magneto and Polaris with Quicksilver, and then the old Magneto in Professor X's wheelchair comes up and says, she is the key to the future of our race. Something like that. And then it cuts to black. So everything after that, I haven't necessarily fully developed, but I got enough of a framework to kind of, go off of. So I might even come up with new ideas on the spot, Or as I'm saying them, I might be like, oh no, that's kind of stupid. Just keep that in mind as well. This is not like 100%, this is just sort of the framework, right? The outline, the log line, if you will. So later on down the line in the MCU movies or television shows, it would have been revealed that Quicksilver was brought to this universe from another universe by Agatha Harkness to mess with Wanda, because she said in that one episode, I really wish that I had a brother who was here. So Agatha saw that, and she obviously can't raise him from the dead, because she said that in the second to last episode that, necromancy was a non-starter, so she can't bring people back from the dead. So she did the next best thing. She brought in the same person from a different universe. And her whole thing about how she lied to herself and all that, she was so grief-stricken that she actually believed it was her brother. Yeah, that would still work, you know what I mean? Because it actually, in a way, is her brother. So I think it would be more believable, So it would be revealed Quicksilver is from a different multiverse. However, he is not from the Fox X-Men universe. He's from a different multiverse. Would that confuse people? Maybe. But I feel like you could still have the creative freedom to do what you wanted to do without being pigeonholed to the X-Men cinematic universe, and you can kind of just restart from scratch with some of the same actors. Because say what you want about the X-Men films. There are some good ones, there are some bad ones, there are some great ones, and there are some awful ones. But a lot of the casting is nailed, and it's perfect. And I really feel like Evan Peters and Michael Fassbender, they would have killed it. Polaris, by the way, would have obviously been played by a new actress. With her green hair and all that, and she has her green, her like green crown and everything. It's like super greened out. That's why I thought at first I was like, I want Quicksilver to have the green version of his, suit. But then I'm like, but that would kind of be too much with Polaris being green. So then I'm like, okay, let's have him be blue. That would make sense to why his first instinct to create a costume in the Halloween episode is his uniform. Quicksilver, Polaris, and the two Magnetos are not from our universe, and they're not from the X-Men universe. They're from a different universe altogether. They come from a universe where mutants and superpowered people are hated. Until Agatha brings freaking Quicksilver along, and it's revealed that Polaris and the two Magnetos traveled through the same portal at a different time somehow, and now everything is getting fucked up because of Agatha and like all this crazy multiversal shit. They're from a universe where superpowered people, especially mutants, are hated and resented. Instead, they go into this main Marvel continuity of the MCU, Earth 616, or whatever you want to call it, and they realize, oh my gosh, people love superpowered people. They love the Avengers. We come from a place where we're hated, we're reviled. But this world, people love superpowered people. Look at the way they treat Avengers. There's murals of Iron Man all over the place in Far From Home. This inspires Magneto. Old Magneto has a plan where he wants to use Wanda to bring the mutants from his universe over to this one, which is how you bring mutants into the MCU without it being crazy. That might not be a great idea. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool because I feel like Marvel's in a position now where it's very difficult to do mutants, because here's the thing. Even in the comic books, I always thought mutants were weird. Why are mutants so hated just because they're born with their powers, when people like Captain America or Iron Man or Thor, they're the exact same thing. They have superpowers too, and yet they're loved, yet the mutants are hated? I always thought that was very strange, which is why the X-Men really benefited from existing in its own continuity. But now we get the best of both worlds. So now we get the answer to that doesn't really happen in that 616 universe, but it sort of did happen to them in their own universe. So it makes sense. So that's how you bring mutants into the MCU. They want to use Wanda to create a portal and bring all the mutants from their universe into this one, so that way they can live normally and have a happy life. So they're trying to get Wanda to use the portal, who, by the way, is technically Magneto's daughter, but I mean, not in this 616 universe, but in his own universe, so that can kind of create some drama right there. They need her to open the portal so they can bring mutants in, so they can have a prosperous life in the 616 universe.
So here is a crazy idea. This might not work, but this is just kind of an idea that I have. Okay, so technically the Marvel movies are Earth 1999999 or whatever, which is such a dumb number. But I always thought that it was more just an adaptation of 616. So when I say this universe, I'm talking Earth 616, which is kind of what I view the MCU to be in, is 616. It's just the adaptation of 616. I don't necessarily think it's its own universe. It's just an adaptation of the 616 universe. But let's say we kept that moniker that the movie universe was Earth 1999999, whatever. These mutants could come from Earth 616, which would be the comic universe, so that everything that happens canonically in the comics, like these would be the freaking, the actual freaking mutants from the comics. Now, I wouldn't personally do that because then I think that would be just too far, like too Doctor Who. That would just go nuts. But it's an idea, and it would be something very just absolutely nuts.
Now, why are there two Magnetos? The two Magnetos, that's a very cool visual that I wanted to have of the end credits scene of the last episode of WandaVision. That would be mind-blowing, right? The explanation is a little difficult, and this is kind of where I have some ideas, so just hear me out. So the old Magneto and the young Magneto are actually the same Magneto from that universe. It's just the younger Magneto that's precisely it, the younger Magneto. So there was time travel involved in that universe to basically where he needed a younger version of himself to come to this new world so he could rule the mutant race or save the mutant race. Because here's the thing about old Magneto, played by Ian McKellen. He's old and he's in a wheelchair. His powers are declining. Or maybe he's still powerful, but point is he knows that he doesn't have as long on this planet. But he knows that the only person who can save mutant kind is himself. So he needed a younger version of himself to rule it and to fulfill his plan. Hold up. Okay, hold up. I got another idea coming. Okay, hold on. Something's coming. Okay, hold up. Okay, this is literally just coming to me right now. I'm getting goosebumps a little bit. Okay, what about this? What if during the end credit scene of WandaVision, freaking old Magneto is talking to young Magneto, and young Magneto's like, I don't understand why do we need her? Wanda's dead. I've already gone through this trauma. Whatever, that's not our Wanda. And then old Magneto can be like, hush, Joseph. I don't know what you're thinking, Joseph. Why are they calling Eric Lencher, a.k.a. Magneto, Joseph? Because Joseph in the X-Men comic books is a younger clone of Magneto who was a good guy who joined the X-Men. He is a super obscure comic book character. But dude, that would be sick, though. Okay, so instead of it being like a younger version of him via time travel, it could be a literal clone of him that Magneto made with the help of, I don't know, Forge or somebody in their own universe to do the same thing, to rule mutant kind, because he knows that he is on his last legs. So he could create a clone of himself, a younger clone, and call him Joseph. And maybe that's why there are two Magnetos. Joseph, hold on a second. Let me grab one of these. For those of you who are a little skeptical and don't believe me. Boom, right here. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. Do you see that right there? Joseph. He is a younger clone of Magneto who joined the X-Men and was actually a good guy. He is right there. Very obscure, but I think that would be dope, though. I think that would be just a really, really cool reveal that would kind of satisfy people a little bit more than what we got in WandaVision, which was a Bohner joke. I just think it would have been dope. Is it super fan servicey? I would argue, yeah, it is super fan servicey, but I would also argue, does it take away... Hold on, let me refocus, I forgot. But does it take away from the impact of WandaVision? No, for two reasons. A, it's an after-credit scene, so all the Wanda-centric stuff you could have could still be there. And two, they set it up. Quicksilver was set up by Marvel, and it had a very, very weak payoff. I don't think it's grasping at straws to assume that this character, played by Evan Peters, who already played Quicksilver in another universe, would be a version, at least, of Quicksilver. I don't think that's grasping at straws. I don't think that's too much to ask. I think that would be awesome. And the sole purpose of after credit scenes is to set up what's to come, especially in the Marvel Universe. So, like I said, not all these ideas are set in stone. I haven't let them marinate. So a lot of it is just kind of a skeleton of an idea that isn't fleshed out 100% yet. But I think that would be so dope. I know that Marvel's maybe planning a mutants movie, literally just called Mutants. Maybe that could be like the purpose of that, where like freaking old Magneto, young Magneto, and freaking Quicksilver and Polaris are trying to kidnap Wanda, or trying to convince Wanda to help them in a way. I don't know. You know what I mean? But maybe that could be it. I just think it would be so cool if Magneto, old Magneto, was almost playing this Professor X-like character, where he's almost had this change of heart, and he is a good guy and a bad guy, but he's like more complex. Because he is a bad guy, you know, but he has like this motivation that makes sense, which is what the best villains are. They're always the hero of their own story, you know? I think that would be very interesting, and I think that would be a very unique and original way to bring the mutants in, because we're in phase 4 right now of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think bringing mutants in at this point would be insane, honestly, especially because the whole point of mutants is that they're hated. Yet when we live in a world where the Avengers are loved and they beat Thanos, I don't think mutants would necessarily be hated. You know, unless you have sectors of people sort of like Zemo who just hate all superpowered people. So maybe that could work, but I just think it would be more interesting if they are hated, but in their own universe where they are the only superpowered people. And then they can create an island in the 616 universe called Genosha, which, if you don't know, Genosha is an island built by Magneto to devote like an entire country just to mutants so they can live and prosper. Maybe that's his motivation. So he wants to bring freaking mutants to this world because superpowered people are loved. It's like, why doesn't he just, boom, create an island, call it Genosha? He's like, we need to, it's like, that's our salvation. Except we need to bring the mutants from our universe over here. And how do we do that? We need Wanda, because she's the only one who can control the multiverse, or has the power to control the multiverse. And they're not going to go to Doctor Strange because they don't know Doctor Strange. They know Wanda. They know Wanda because that's Magneto's daughter in his own universe. I don't know. I just think just that image of like freaking Polaris with her green hair and her green armor, with Quicksilver with his white hair, his goggles, and his freaking blue armor with like the lightning on it, but obviously make it look a little more modern and cool. And then freaking Magneto or Joseph, you know, in his freaking helmet and stuff that's comic accurate, and then freaking Ian McKellen in Professor X's wheelchair, just like that shot, like all of them, the camera like pulls out and it's all of them just standing in a line, you know what I mean? And then boom, cuts to black. That would be sick, bro. Marvel. But I just think that would have been a really cool reveal. Sorry if I didn't come off very eloquent, because like I said, these are just off the dome, basically. I've had this idea for a while, for like a couple months now, of like the whole Magneto thing. But explaining why it's two Magnetos and all that is something that I sort of just left, because that's what Marvel does. Marvel, what they do is they set things up for their next writers. Like, you know what would be cool? What if Thor leaves with the Guardians of the Galaxy and he's now a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy? And then he's like, well, good luck with that, James. Good luck with that, Taika. That's what they do. They give their future writers challenges. And I feel like that would be a crazy challenge to explain, why are there two Magnetos? Why is Polaris and Quicksilver here? And I know the answers because I whatever, but I feel like other writers too could have some really cool ideas and we could all like collaborate on it. I just think that would be a much more satisfying ending than the one we got, which was Bohner. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I think this is a cool idea. Let me know if you think my idea is shit. Let me know if like how you think my idea could be cooler. Maybe you can add your own little spin and like put it in the comments below. I would love to hear your guys' story ideas. I've just been like I don't know. I just get really excited when I talk about story ideas. Let me know if you guys think it's shit. Let me guys know if you like it. Let me know. I just think it would be such a much bigger payoff. That's it, guys. Clever catchphrase. I'll see you later. Okay, so get this shit right. I have this idea about Magneto and Polaris and all that appearing, you know, at the final log cabin scene. I'm watching how it should have ended. And then, guess what? Guess who freaking appears in the scene with the log cabin? So they had a log cabin scene. Obviously, Vision's not in my version, but
I heard about that thing you did with all the guns.
Freaking Magneto appears. The same freaking scene, like in the after credit scene, like, oh god, dude. That was just 100% coincidence. I swear that's kind of insane. That's kind of funny though. Great minds think alike, I guess. So, yep. Just so if you commented, I saw how it should have ended his idea, I promise that's not what happened at all. This is just a giant coincidence.